Hi, I'm Jake, 32, and last month my life blew up when I caught my girlfriend cheating with my dad. Yeah, you read that right. My actual, biological father. The man who gave me life and then decided to ruin it for sport. I'd been dating Clara for almost a year. We met through mutual friends at a housewarming party, and I remember thinking she had this magnetic energy, funny, whip-smart, little sharp around the edges in a way I liked. She was also insanely gorgeous, which probably should have been my first red flag. Beautiful women like Clara rarely come without complications. But I ignored the warnings because when we clicked, it felt electric. My dad, Richard, is 55. A retired dentist with a golf tan, a wine subscription, and a divorce settlement that left him comfortably rich and entirely too charming for his own good. He's the kind of guy who calls waitresses darling and flirts with bank tellers just to see them blush. My mom used to call him a walking midlife crisis with veneers. And honestly, she wasn't wrong. He and I were never particularly close. The kind of father-son relationship that was more Christmas texts and awkward birthday lunches than any real emotional bonding. He tried to be the cool dad growing up, offering me beer at 17, joking about sex at the dinner table, but it always felt like he was performing some version of what he thought a father should be. Still, I figured we'd patched up enough to keep things civil in adulthood. Big mistake. The first time I brought Clara around my family was for Thanksgiving. My sister had just moved into a new place, and we were all doing dinner potluck style. Clara baked this ridiculous bourbon pecan pie that made my grandmother weep actual tears. The whole evening went smoothly except for one thing: my dad would not stop talking to her. At first, I chalked it up to his usual behavior. He was being friendly, asking about her job and marketing, her favorite wine, the book she was reading. But then he started with the arm touches. The long eye contact. At one point, I walked into the kitchen and caught him showing her a photo of his motorcycle restoration project on his phone. He doesn't ride motorcycles. I brought it up on the drive home, joking. So, I think my dad has a crush on you. Clara laughed a little too hard and said, well, he is kind of hot for an older guy. I laughed too. Then promptly shoved that comment into a mental box labeled weird things we're never discussing again. Except, the box didn't stay closed. Over the next few weeks, I started noticing things. Subtle shifts. Clara would smile at her phone and then quickly lock it when I came into the room. She started asking questions about my dad out of nowhere, like what he was like before the divorce, if he dated anyone new, what kind of music he listened to. One night, she wore this new perfume to bed, and when I said it smelled different, she said, your dad complimented it at Thanksgiving. I froze. That was 2 months ago. It all came crashing down when I borrowed Clara's iPad to look up a recipe. Safari autofilled her search bar with how to delete hidden messages on iPhone. That pit in your stomach you get when your world tilts? Yeah. That. I opened her iMessage app, and there it was. A hidden folder of conversations with a contact labeled Richard. I tapped it, and my entire body went numb. They'd been texting for over a month. Flirty. Suggestive. Then explicit. There were jokes about me. Jake's so sweet, but kinda boring, right? And talk about meeting up again. There were photos. Of her. Of him. Of them together. One at a wine bar I recognized near my office. I couldn't even feel the betrayal yet. I just kept reading, like my brain needed all the evidence before it would allow my heart to break. Then I saw the date stamp on one of the photos. It was from the night Clara told me she was working late. I put the iPad down, walked into the living room, and stared at her sitting on our couch like nothing was wrong. My voice came out calm, too calm. Hey, Clara. How long have you been screwing my father? She dropped the remote. And just like that, everything shattered. She didn't even deny it at first. Clara just stared at me, lips parted, eyes wide. You know that split-second moment when someone's deciding whether to lie or come clean? I watched her go through the full emotional buffet: shock, guilt, panic, calculation. Then she stood up slowly, like her legs weren't sure they could hold the weight of what was coming. I didn't mean for it to happen, she said, voice barely above a whisper. That's the moment I knew it was all true. You don't lead with, I didn't mean for it to happen. Unless it happened. In every way. I just nodded. I think part of me expected a confession. Maybe even an apology. What I didn't expect was the way she shifted blame. Jake, you've been so distant lately. She started, and I actually barked out a laugh. Like a full, ugly, laugh in the face of betrayal moment. You slept with my dad, Clara. You don't get to pivot to my emotional availability right now. She flinched like I'd slapped her, and maybe I had, verbally at least. But it didn't stop her from trying again. It wasn't serious, okay? I didn't think you'd find out. I almost admired the boldness of that logic. Not, it didn't mean anything. Not, we only kissed. No. It wasn't serious. She just thought she could carry on screwing my father like it was some extracurricular activity, and I'd never notice. How many times? I asked, keeping my voice level. She hesitated. Then, a few. Define a few. 5? She said like it was a question. Like I was a game show host holding the buzzer. Jesus Christ, Clara. Now I'm not a violent guy. Never have been. But I punched the couch so hard I thought I'd broken my knuckles. Clara jumped, hands up, as if I might suddenly throw her out the window. I didn't. I just turned and walked into the kitchen because I needed air. Space. Anything that wasn't her face or my father's face or the image of them together that was now branded into the back of my brain. Clara followed me, of course. She always had to have the last word. I didn't do this to hurt you. Then why him? I snapped. Of all people. Of every man in the world, why my father? She didn't answer right away. And then, God help me, she actually said. He understood me. I nearly lost it right there. Not because of the cliché. But because it sounded exactly like something my dad would say. Something smooth and manipulative, and completely devoid of real accountability. And that's when the realization hit me. Clara hadn't fallen into some random affair. She hadn't been swept away by romance or lust or loneliness. She'd been groomed. Manipulated by a man twice her age who knew exactly what he was doing. A man who had always been better at charming women than raising a son. And I had let it happen. I brought her into this house. I introduced them. I laughed off the flirting like it was harmless. I gave them proximity. So I did the only thing I could think of. I told her to get out. Right then. No packing. No goodbye. Just go. She tried to cry, to hug me, to explain. I opened the front door and stared at it until she walked through. Then I locked it behind her and slid to the floor. That night I didn't sleep. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in years. I called my dad. Hey, Richard, I said when he picked up, sounding chipper as hell. How about lunch? We met at a place he chose, some overpriced steakhouse with valet parking and waiters who pretend you're royalty if you order a bottle of wine over $100. I arrived early and sat at the bar nursing a ginger ale, trying not to think about how many times he'd probably brought women like Clara to places just like this. When he walked in, he was wearing that smug navy blazer he always wore when he wanted to look casual but powerful. His hair was perfect, teeth gleaming. The kind of guy who aged like a trust fund, steady, polished, and entirely too pleased with himself. Jake, he said like I was his golf buddy he hadn't seen in a few weeks, not his son who just discovered he was screwing his girlfriend. You look good. Been working out? I didn't even flinch. A bit. We sat. Small talk ensued. He ordered a bottle of Bordeaux without asking, said something pretentious about the 2015 vintage. I let him go on like nothing was wrong, let him fill the silence with his usual self-congratulatory stories. Then, halfway through the appetizer, I hit him with it. So how long have you been sleeping with Clara? The way he dropped his fork was almost theatrical. He blinked at me, tilted his head like I'd just spoken in a language he didn't recognize. I'm sorry, what? Clara. My girlfriend. The one you've been texting. Flirting with. Sleeping with. Or did you think I wouldn't find out? He laughed. Actually laughed. Then rubbed his chin like he was buying time. Jake, listen. I think you've misunderstood something. Oh, please, I said, leaning forward. Don't insult both of our intelligence. He paused again, then gave me the expression I'd come to know too well, the one he used on patients who complained about their bill after a root canal. Calm, patronizing, vaguely pitying. Look, Jake. She came on to me. I didn't go chasing her. I stared at him, my throat dry. You're 55. She's an adult. She was my girlfriend. He held up his hands like that was some kind of valid defense. And I didn't intend for anything to happen. Things just escalated. I pushed my chair back and stood up, heart thudding. You're unbelievable. You didn't just sleep with her. You manipulated her. You knew exactly what you were doing, and you did it anyway. You treated her like a shiny object you could take just because it belonged to me. Don't be dramatic, Jake. I slammed both palms on the table hard enough to rattle the wine glasses. This isn't drama. This is me telling you that you've officially destroyed whatever was left of our relationship. He didn't flinch, but he did look annoyed. Like I was ruining his lunch. You're overreacting. That's when I leaned in, voice low. Do you know why Clara went along with it, Dad? Because she wanted approval. She thought you were impressive. That you had all the answers. But you don't. You're just a sad, aging man who preys on women half his age to feel important. A flicker of something passed over his face, maybe guilt, maybe recognition. But it was gone just as fast. You done? He asked. Not quite. And that's when I pulled out the envelope. Inside was a printed copy of the messages Clara had sent me, the ones she screenshotted and emailed in a pathetic apology the night after I kicked her out. The ones that included shirtless mirror selfies he had sent her. The ones where he called me boring, predictable, said I wasn't man enough for someone like her. I slid it across the table. Enjoy, I said. Keep it. Frame it if you want. Just know I'm done. He didn't say a word as I walked out. And I didn't look back. That was 3 weeks ago. Since then, I've blocked his number. Haven't returned his emails. Haven't spoken to Clara either. She moved out the same week, left a half-hearted apology note taped to the fridge like this was some sitcom breakup and not a full-on betrayal explosion. But the weird part? I didn't feel empty. I felt free. Free from a lifetime of letting my father dictate the emotional climate of our relationship. Free from dating women who mirrored the dysfunction I grew up watching. Free from trying to prove I was good enough for someone who never really tried to know me. And then, just as I was settling into my newly scorched life, something unexpected happened. A message slid into my inbox. Hi, Jake. You don't know me, but I think we have something in common. My name's Rachel. Clara's old roommate. I thought you should know, she's done this before. I stared at the message for a full minute before I moved. I must have read it 6 times, half expecting it to disappear like some hallucinated revenge fantasy. But it didn't. It stayed right there in black and white. Hi, Jake. You don't know me, but I think we have something in common. My name's Rachel. Clara's old roommate. I thought you should know, she's done this before. Before I even replied, I clicked on her profile, mutuals with Clara, photos going back a few years, mostly beach trips and brunches, but yeah, this girl was real. And not some catfish troll on a mission to kick a guy while he's down. I finally typed back. What do you mean she's done this before? Rachel's reply came less than 5 minutes later. I lived with her during her junior and senior years of college. She dated a guy named Ben for about 10 months. Real sweet guy. He had a single mom, divorced, worked in HR at a local tech company. Guess what Clara did? I didn't respond. I didn't have to. Yep. She slept with Ben's mom. I nearly dropped my phone. I called Rachel. No waiting. She picked up after one ring. Jake? She asked, voice cautious. Tell me everything. So she did. Apparently, Clara had a pattern. Not just of cheating, but of targeting. She'd date nice, stable guys and then seduce someone close to them, usually someone older, powerful, off-limits. Rachel said it started as a joke at first, something Clara would laugh about during wine nights. I swear I could have Ben's mom if I wanted. She'd giggle, like it was a game. And then she did. One weekend when Ben was out of town visiting his dad, Clara had brunch with his mom. Just to bond. 2 weeks later, Rachel walked in on Clara FaceTiming her, in lingerie. The whole thing imploded when Ben found texts, surprise, and Clara's defense was eerily familiar. It just happened. She was lonely. I was trying to be nice. Rachel said she moved out 2 weeks later and hadn't spoken to Clara since. Until she saw her name tagged in a photo on a mutual friend's Instagram, my photo, Thanksgiving dinner, with my hand resting on Clara's thigh and my dad smiling across the table. Rachel said the moment she saw it, she got a sick feeling in her gut. I knew exactly what was going to happen, she said. And I'd been feeling guilty for weeks for not warning you. You're warning me now, I said. We ended up talking for over an hour. Turns out Rachel had seen firsthand how Clara operated. It wasn't about love. or even lust. It was about control. About conquest. The bigger the risk, the more it thrilled her. She needs to win, Rachel said. She needs to know she can break the rules and come out on top. Doesn't matter who gets crushed along the way. I hung up and sat there in silence for a long time, staring out the window like some noir detective piecing together a case I didn't know I was in. It all made sense now. The comments Clara made about my dad being kind of hot. The way she lit up when he complimented her. The way she seemed to test boundaries in every conversation, just to see how far she could push things before someone called her out. I had blamed my father completely. And make no mistake, he's still responsible for being the kind of man who would betray his own son without blinking. But Clara? Clara had chosen him on purpose. She didn't just fall into an affair. She hunted him. And me. Like a twisted emotional game of chess, just to prove she could. And suddenly, I felt something I hadn't felt since the breakup. Rage. Not the hollow kind that fades into sadness. Not the hurt kind that whispers you're not enough. No, this was the clear, focused, surgical kind of rage. The kind that says you don't get to walk away untouched. So I called my sister. Because my sister, bless her, is the petty queen of justice. She once mailed a glitter bomb to a guy who ghosted her after proposing. That level. Tell me what you know about Clara, I said. She didn't even hesitate. Oh, I hated her. Why? She called me your slightly less hot twin the second time we met. Right. I told her everything, Clara, my dad, Rachel's call, the whole messed up story. By the time I finished, there was a pause on the line. Then, Jake. We're going nuclear. What does that mean? Do you want revenge, or do you want closure with fireworks? I didn't even have to think. Both. My sister has a friend named Naomi who runs a podcast about messy relationship dramas. You know the type. Anonymous submissions, wild call-ins, hosts that cackle like witches over stories of men losing their jobs because their girlfriends exposed their secret kids. We wrote in. Told the story, anonymously of course. Changed a few names. Naomi read it live the following week, adding dramatic voice acting and spicy commentary. Within days, it went viral. People dissecting every detail on Reddit, TikTok, Twitter. And the comments? Let's just say Clara's reputation took a hit. But the best part? The next text I got wasn't from Clara. It was from my dad. Did you seriously put our business on a podcast? I didn't respond. Instead, I screenshotted it and forwarded it to Naomi. Her reply? We love a sequel. The story exploded. Within a week, Naomi's podcast episode, titled, My Girlfriend Slept with My Dad, the turkey wasn't the only thing getting stuffed, racked up over 3 million streams. Reddit threads broke it down like it was a murder case. TikTokers reenacted the scenes. Someone even did a dramatic reading of the breakup text Clara sent me, complete with violin music and a British accent. And sure, my name wasn't in it. Neither was Clara's. But our friends knew. My coworkers knew. Hell, even our old high school math teacher emailed me and said, Heard the story, if that's real, I hope you took the dog. I did. Clara, predictably, did not handle this well. It started with a barrage of texts. Clara, what the actual hell, Jake? Clara, you're insane. That podcast is full of lies. Clara, I want a retraction. Clara, you need to fix this or I'm calling a lawyer. Then came the voicemails. The crying. We made mistakes on both sides. Nonsense. The gaslighty half-apology laced with just enough guilt-tripping to make her feel like the victim again. You made me feel like I wasn't enough, Jake. I didn't mean to hurt you, but you were always so distant, and your dad, he just listened to me. Sure he did, Clara. Right before he took his shirt off. I blocked her. Again. Then I got the group text. It was from my dad. Richard, Jake, enough is enough. Your little story is affecting my reputation. People at the club are asking questions. The man really said reputation, like he didn't publicly humiliate his own son over turkey and pie. Richard, I think it's time you take this down before someone connects the dots. I sent one message back. Me, I'm not the one who needs to worry about dots being connected. Because here's the thing, while Clara was busy melting down, and my dad was worried about gossip at the country club, Rachel and my sister were not done. Apparently, Rachel had more stories. More receipts. And she had zero problem forwarding them to Naomi. By the time the follow-up episode dropped, It gets worse. He wasn't her first family affair. Clara had been digitally immortalized as a walking, talking Greek tragedy with a thing for other people's parents. And Richard? Well, turns out he'd been a little too liberal with his affections at the dental office before he retired. My sister found a review online from an ex-staff member claiming, Dr. R. liked to flirt more than he liked to fill cavities. The man had a pattern. Clara was just the latest puzzle piece. And while all that unfolded in the background, something strange happened to me. I started to feel good. Not vindictive. Not smug. But calm. Like a fog had lifted. Like I could finally see how much mental gymnastics I'd done my whole life to excuse my dad's behavior, to minimize Clara's red flags, to pretend like being quietly betrayed was just bad luck, instead of repeated patterns I kept ignoring. The podcast wasn't just revenge. It was exposure therapy. And it worked. One night, about a month later, I was at a bar with Rachel. Yeah, we'd been texting more, and she turned to me and said, I think you're finally free of her. I raised my glass. Her and my dad. She smirked. Honestly, he was the real snake. We clinked glasses. And I believed her. For the first time in my adult life, I believed I could build something better than the broken blueprint I'd grown up with. I just had to stop handing out keys to people who never deserved access in the first place. 3 months later, Clara vanished from my life completely. No texts. No calls. No drive-bys. I heard through the grapevine she'd moved to Austin to reset. Which I assume meant find another emotionally available guy with a dysfunctional family and start the cycle all over again. Good luck to them. Really. I mean that almost sincerely. My dad, on the other hand, didn't slink off quite so quietly. He tried to do damage control. First with the family, sending carefully worded emails about how deeply sorry he was for the confusion that had occurred. He called my sister, who hung up on him mid-apology. He left me a voicemail where he said, and I quote, Jake, you know how passionate people can be. Sometimes wires get crossed. But that doesn't mean we can't move forward as men. As men. I didn't even respond. Because men who sleep with their sons' girlfriends don't get second chances. They get blocked. I wasn't angry anymore. Just done. Meanwhile, Rachel and I kept hanging out. At first it was friendly, coffee, drinks, therapy jokes about our mutual Clara trauma. But somewhere between our third and fourth hangout, I realized I was laughing more than I had in months. Smiling without effort. Talking without editing myself. She didn't flinch when I got quiet mid-sentence. She didn't try to fix me. She just sat there, honest and calm, calling Clara a chaos goblin in high heels, and telling me my dad probably peaked in dental school. We kissed one night in the parking lot of a terrible karaoke bar after a duet of Since You've Been Gone, that neither of us could hit the high notes on. It felt natural. Earned. Safe. We took it slow. I wasn't in a hurry to label things. But every time she reached for my hand, I let her. And for once, I didn't look over my shoulder waiting for a betrayal. I didn't worry that I wasn't enough. I just existed. With her. Fully. The podcast kept circulating. Naomi sent me a t-shirt that said, Clara, no. On the front end. Trust no dad. On the back. I wore it to the gym once and a stranger fist bumped me without explanation. Reputation healed. Dad ghosted. Clara gone. And me? I was finally learning the difference between drama and depth. I saw my dad one last time. It wasn't planned. I was at the grocery store picking up snacks for a weekend trip with Rachel, our first little getaway, and there he was in the wine aisle, holding a bottle of Cabernet and looking like a man who hadn't slept well in months. We locked eyes. I gave him a polite nod and kept walking. He followed me. Of course he did. Jake, he said, placing the bottle in his cart like this was a normal father-son moment. I stopped. Let him speak. I just wanted to say, I was wrong. That's all he said. No excuses this time. No manipulation. Just 3 words that somehow meant more because they were so rare coming from him. I nodded. Yeah. You were. He didn't argue. Just stood there, looking old and tired. He asked if we could grab coffee sometime. I told him maybe. That was a few months ago. I haven't followed up. Maybe I will someday. Maybe I won't. Because here's the truth. Some people don't need to be in your life forever, even if they helped start it. As for Clara? She sent one last message. Just a single line. You really made me look like the villain. I didn't respond. Because if the glass slipper fits, don't expect me to help you take it off. Rachel and I are still together. We're happy. Not because we're perfect, but because we're honest. We both know what betrayal feels like, and more importantly, what healing looks like. Sometimes I still catch myself bracing for drama, waiting for the other shoe to drop. But then she'll do something simple, like bring me a second coffee when I forget mine, or pull me out of a bad mood with a terrible impression of Naomi's podcast voice, and I remember. I'm not stuck in that chapter anymore. That story is over. This is a new one. And this time, I get to write it.